Good evening and welcome to the Cardinal Way for Men Live. My name is Ed Cardinal. Tonight's topic is about racism, and you might be asking why this topic. It's actually been on my list for a while, and something came up this past week that reminded me that maybe it's time to talk about it. You know, it's something that we've seen in the media. I don't follow much media, but I know it's been a big topic for many years now. I like to follow sports, and this past week I noticed that a commentator, broadcaster for the Angels, or actually it was the Oakland Athletic baseball team, was fired because of a racial slur. And I looked at the broadcast and I listened, and I was actually appalled, and it was rather jarring to me to hear that type of racial slur. And I found out later in reading about it that he didn't even realize it till later in the broadcast of the baseball game that he actually said what he said. So it just goes to show you that racism, just like the cultural conditioning around what it means to be a man, there's a lot of cultural and familiar conditioning around racism, and it is so deep sometimes that we don't even realize it's there until it rears its ugly head like it did for this broadcaster. I can say I'm fortunate because my mom was very accepting of all people, even though her father was, from what I understand, a racist and a bigot. But it didn't matter how much someone made. She grew up poor. She didn't forget where she came from. So she was always trying to help people who are less fortunate. And it didn't matter the color of people's skin or who they were. So I'm grateful for that. But that doesn't mean that there hasn't been and continues to be some things I need to take a look at within myself. So the reason why I decided to talk about racism and why it's something that I think is important is I'm always trying to be a better man. And having some of these deep racist beliefs and biases does not allow me to be the best man I can be. It's not allow me to reach my full potential. And I know there's a lot of other men out there that are in the same boat. So I'm in the South now. I'm living in the South, and I haven't seen, and I've only been here for about 10 months, I haven't seen racism, but I can feel it. I don't know if you're going to know what I mean by that, but I can feel it. I'm living in an area where there used to be plantations, and I get the sense that the people of color around here try to stay out of the limelight, stay as much as they can out of the public, stay out of trouble, because they know where they stand down here. And it reminds me of a story, and continue to. It's deep. It's deeply rooted, and I can sense it. I can feel it. It reminds me of the story of a social worker I once worked with, and he was white, and he went to school down in Virginia, and he had a black supervisor, a woman, and they were talking about racism, and she said, "At least I know down south here where I live, where I stand, because it was overt. In the north, it's there, but it's covert." And I was very surprised to hear that. And then I thought more about it, and she was right. And I was also surprised when a friend of mine, before I moved from Rhode Island, told me that the largest membership of the KKK in Rhode Island was one town north of where I lived. And to be honest with you, I didn't even know that the Ku Klux Klan even existed in Rhode Island. So very racism can be very covert, very embedded, and not even realized. There's research that indicates that adults and even children show more positively towards people who are more like them, have the same skin color, which means that there is more of an unfavorable response towards people who are not in their group, who are different than them and have a different skin color. Racism has negative impact on the health of individuals, families, communities, and cultures. And I don't think it's only for the cultures that are the victims of racism. I also believe it's the people like myself who have some biases, some deep-seated beliefs about other races. It can impact our health and well-being if we don't acknowledge it, take a look at it, and do something about it. And that's what I've done at times, and I need to continue to do. I remember a young man and this is when I was in high school, and my sister was about 3 years younger than me, and she went to school with this. His parents were actually first generation from Nigeria. And I remember joking to him about, well, you look pale today, you feeling okay? And I said that a couple of times to him, and and he looked at me strangely, and just jokes like that, and different biases I have and have had, and are things that I'm not proud of, but I'm glad that I can now look back and acknowledge them and make some changes. So these are ways that you can challenge your racist beliefs. One is reflect on moments in your past when you were making racial comments or you had racist beliefs. Anti-racism requires us that ability to examine our own beliefs and also engage in critical thinking. Another way to combat racism is to seek diversity in your life. So maybe hang out in areas where there are people of diversity, people of color, of different ethnic backgrounds, and make friends with them and talk to them so you get to know their world. And in that process, you begin to challenge your own beliefs about people of color, people of different races, different cultures, people who are different than us, people of white skin. And research shows that white people who live in communities with diversity are definitely more accepting of differences and have less racism because of that. So I challenge you to take a look at your beliefs, your biases around racism. I think it's important in order to be a healthier, more rounded man, being accepting of all people and loving all people regardless of color of their skin. Hope this was helpful and enlightening in some way. And if it was, please drop a comment below in what way it was, and maybe one thing that you realized about yourself when hearing about this topic. Until you see me again, be well. Take care. Have a good night. Bye-bye.